this meeting of the Carson City Historic Resources Commission on May 1st, 2024 at the Bob Crowell Boardroom to order. Can you please call the roll?
Chairperson Drews,
Here.
Vice Chair Schmitter,
Here.
Commissioner Block,
Here.
Commissioner Darney, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Spulda,
Here.
Commissioner Wright. A quorum is present.
Next item is public comment. Public is welcome to comment on any items pertaining to the Historic Resources Commission. You can make your comments now, or you can wait till the item's heard, and we'll take comments during that too. Go ahead.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you, Chair and commissioners. My day has been really a runaround because of issues of putting things down and not being able to find them. But also, I went up to see where some historical issues are, and I'll relate to that specifically in the future. But I do want to say thank you so much for Heather's help today. And, you know, I'm not real formal on how to get everybody's in here, but she's part of the planning manager. She's a planning manager, and she did an excellent job of helping me today. So I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to 5C specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. We appreciate her almost as much as you do, maybe more. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'm looking for approval of the minutes from March 6, 2024.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting on March 6, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No? Joan? Oh,
Sorry, I said no nos. Sorry,
motion's
a
approved.
double negative.
Motion's approved unanimously with 3 ayes, no, double negative. Next item, meeting items, 5A for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for a request for an historic tax deferment on property zone single-family 6,000 SF6 located at 302 Thompson Street, assessor's parcel number APN 003-133-31. Heather.
Thank you, Heather Affairs for the record. This application is before you due to a change in ownership. When considering such requests, the commission typically reviews 4 items: the historic significance of the property, the current condition of the property, any alterations made to the property, and whether the property complies with the HRC guidelines. Staff addressed each of these 4 items in the staff report and found in the affirmative. Staff is recommending the Historic Resource Commission recommend approval of the tax deferment to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions of Heather? Is the applicant here? No. Sure.
Yes, press it.
Sorry, I've never done this before. My name is Shawnee McFadden. I appreciate you guys' time. I am one of the new owners of this property. And I'm just requesting this historic tax deferment because this property has been in the historic district for a while, and it was built in 1915 with many of the original items still intact. One of the things being the foundation. Also, my brother owns one of the properties in the historic district built in 1914, and he was approved previously for it as well. I just think that this could benefit the property with our ability to upkeep it. But other than that, I just appreciate your guys' time and consideration and whatever you decide on.
Thank you. Any commission member questions or comments?
I just have one comment on the picture that we're looking at, the upper left, the left-hand side. It says September 2003. It was September 2023.
Yes, it should have been 2023.
I think what Carson put the fence up with about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Jed.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC 2024-0091 based on the findings that the request is consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and the Secretary of the Interior standards as noted in the staff report.
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work. It's a nice, really nice little piece of property. Next item is 5B for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a request to replace windows on property zoned residential office RO located at 507, 509, and 511 North Division Street, Assessor's parcel number APN 003-221-01. Heather.
Thank you. The property is located at the southeast corner of North Division Street and West Robinson Street. The property is improved with 2 residential structures, a duplex and a triplex, and also a garage. The subject of this request is the triplex building which fronts North Division Street. The triplex is a single-story building with a nearly flat roof with parapets on the front and side facades. According to the survey information, it was built in approximately 1941, is of wood frame construction with stucco finish with elements of the Spanish colonial revival style. The applicants are seeking approval to replace all existing wood-clad windows along the west side and one on the north side of the triplex. These photos here show the condition of the existing windows. The replacement windows are proposed to be wood composite low-E windows that match the same size and pane configuration of the existing wood-clad windows. The existing trim would be retained. Carson City Development Standards Division 5.16 provides guidelines for replacing windows in historic districts. It states in part, the original window shall be retained and repaired when at all possible. When replacement is necessary, a window of duplicate design shall be used. The size, pane, configuration, design, and trim shall replicate that of the original. Staff finds the proposed replacement of the windows is consistent with the guidelines. With that, I'm available for questions. The applicants are also here and may wish to address the commission.
Any commission member questions of Heather? Any questions of the applicant?
Come on up.
Actually, why don't you both come up?
Yeah.
Just sign in for the record.
I did. I was waiting for them to, oh, but
I'm Megan Lopresti, and we purchased this property at the end of 2019, and we've made a lot of improvements, but we've tried very hard to stick with the overall aesthetics and historic properties of the property. And we actually have sold our house, and due to the real estate market being the way it is, we ended up moving into the property, which we never planned to do. And so we are fully experiencing the issues with these windows. We've looked at options for fixing, but with the wood damage, the glass company said it would be pretty difficult to do. And we have tenants having 5 units there, and it's a safety hazard with the single pane glass, and we have found the utility bills to be extremely expensive. It's extremely loud. It just, they're tired. And so we're requesting to replace them with something that stays with the same feel, but will be more efficient and safer. Go ahead, if you have comments, I see it on your face.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask about the condition, but there's more photos in here that show some of the deterioration. A lot of times in historic buildings, we try to get you to fix the wood frame in there and reuse as much of the original material as possible. But on this one, it may be a little too late for that.
And we did explore that option because we're kind of the same mindset. If we can save things, we'd like.
So I guess I want to ask a question of the commission with everybody's expertise. If you call Capital Glass, they'll say we won't touch them because there's lead on there. If you take it to Fast Glass, they don't know how to glaze windows anymore. They put a thing of silicone on there. These windows, you scrape the paint, tighten them up, and reglaze them. They're totally fixable, but is there anybody that still does that around? I mean, that's...
Yeah, me. Looking at the rails and stiles, or at least the components at the bottom of these windows, you'd need to rebuild half of the windows just to get them to work right. And then you do have the issue of tempered windows near the doors and things like that. So this actually came before me as an administrative matter, and I wanted to defer to the board because I know you guys all have opinions about
My other
those.
concern is every one of these windows has a lamb tongue. Was it lamb's tail on, and on all the upper panes, and we've been assured a few times that those would be retained with new windows. There's a house on 4th and Thompson. The lamb's tongue disappears. I don't see in any of these pictures of the new stuff that they're going to have a lamb's tongue on there. And if you go by and take a look and walk down the sidewalk, you'll see the lamb's tongue. Let's see, you can probably see it on the north picture.
Yeah,
see
on
that lamb's tongue there?
page 34, I think you can, if you look really hard, you can see
The first window with the air conditioner on it, up top, it's really hard to see, but you can see the lamb's tongue in there, at least we could when I looked at the packet online. But I'm afraid those are going to disappear. And the other concern is these wood composite windows are 40% wood, 60% plastic. So they're going to be, the only ones that do it are Renew by Anderson. And we let the Brewery Arts Center do that on the Performance Hall in the 1980s edition. But, you know, if I could walk anymore, I'd come by and fix them. They're easy enough to fix. The wood rot's not that bad. There's a stop in there. You can get new wood stop. You can get all these pieces. Those are just my concerns. And without, you know, I'm not picking on I don't want to pick on the applicant for that, but they are fixable. I've got worse windows in my house that were fixed, and it's all doable. There's a lot of glazing that can be redone. I know there's a couple glass guys that still do it, small shops. So those are my concerns right there. And then a question for the applicant. Have you guys insulated the walls at all? So they did the drill and fill for you and all that stuff.
You want me to
Yeah.
comment? So, not that I wanted to address it. Be able to live there.
Hey, one thing, I don't have multiple sclerosis, but I have muscular dystrophy, so it's hard to get in and out. What helped the most on my house, because I had some new windows built on the back to match the original one, single pane rattly windows. Hunter Douglas vinyl shutters will give you that barrier in there, and you won't have the drafts anymore. And you will recoup the costs of that, where you won't probably on the windows for heat.
Yeah.
That's just
With-
my sideline.
So that's been a big concern with us, especially because they swell and then we can't open them, and we are
Would, excuse me just a second. When you're both speaking, could you make sure that your the lights?
So sorry.
The lights are
Is
on,
that-
lights are green. Thank
Oh,
you.
perfect. Sorry
Perfect,
about that. I was just mentioning that the windows in these units are just a little bit, I'd say about 24 inches off the floor. They're pretty low to the floor. The duplex unit, the windows are much higher, so we don't have as much concern with those, and that's why we're not applying for all.
And I too, and the upstairs of my house where all the rentals are, the window sills are about 12 to 16 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
No one's fallen through the windows yet. I mean, I can't say that won't happen, but, you know, if the building catches on fire, like I told the fire department, break down the front door, I don't care, save the building. And, you know, code does say tempered glass, and that gets expensive because each piece has to be individually cut for that. The other thing that I'm concerned about when you go to low E, you can see that it's an old house with green windows.
what was that?
When you see low E windows, it gives you the illusion that they're either blue or green.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying.
Any other questions or comments? Michelle?
Aren't there a couple replacement windows already in this triplex?
Sorry. Yes, when we purchased it, the rear windows had already been replaced,
Okay, I remember.
so.
Also, we could specify clear glass, if that would appease Jed. I know, but how many existing windows have the lamb's tongue? That's a replacement.
Then the north one's got that, the first two windows that you see facing the west, one's got a storm window on it, that has the lamb's tongue underneath it. And the one next door to it does, I believe they all do in the front. But I haven't gone back and done a close observation in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, the lamb's tongue, I think, is a very character-defining element that we're losing all over the place.
Trying to remember if Peter Smith or someone did. They didn't, but it was doable, I believe.
That's what Peter told us, but that is also the house on Third and Thompson, the lamb's tongue didn't come back with it. And I would think that when I talked to Anderson about the renewal windows, they said they're approved by historic districts all over the place, and I said, can you give me any names? They couldn't. I think it's such a new thing, but if they can, I would think these companies, if you're gonna allow the windows to be replaced, I'm against replacing these windows, I think they can be fixed, but if they can put the lamb's tongue back on there, fabricate, where it gives you that element, I would think that would be beneficial to the district.
Yeah, the color of the low E glass was my biggest concern. And I would think if you can get Anderson to come back and say, yeah, we can replicate that lamb's tongue for you and go with a clear glass instead of the low E. We could probably approve it administratively. I've got an idea what the board would like.
Now, Mike, just for the Anderson stuff, you can remove the sashes with the stops, and isn't there a retrofit that goes right in there so it would make it look like these do?
The way Anderson does it, they just pretty much just cut out the old, put in the new, and it's a nice window, and you can't tell that it's not wood. There's grain there, it's paintable, they hold up a lot better than any vinyl window. So, does the board want to approve with conditions, or would you like to just send it back to the applicant, have them get back to us and do it administratively?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would just want to remind this commission, you had windows at the Curry House, and you allowed the replacement of those windows with the storage of the original windows, and that may be an option here, that could work. And I'm just looking at the guidelines, and I think if there's lamb's tongue, it could be something where the chair makes a visual observation if it is on the window or not. And if it is there, they obtain the molding for that particular window. But I just wanted to remind the commission that that's how you handled the Curry House. And in looking at the guidelines, you're really, if you agree that it's okay to replace these windows, you're looking at configuration, design, and trim replicating original. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hope.
What's quickest for them? Do we ask them to come back with new design addressing these issues, or we just add to the conditions?
I'm going to put forth asking for the conditions with approval because in a month it's going to be hot and I cannot live here. I mean, I understand. Sorry, I'm emotional about this because it's frustrating. But I understand Jeb's comment that he has health conditions, but he doesn't know what mine are. And I am very susceptible to heat.
There we go. For the past few summers, we actually had to move out and live alternatively, but this year we just don't have that option.
I don't have any problem with just attaching conditions. Whatever the board desires is good for me.
Could we have one of the conditions that they just retain the upper sash of those windows with the lamb's tongue, so that if the new replacements, which are the double hung single
Yeah, I don't
window.
know. You have to comment on that.
So, and I'm just going to ask for clarification. So you're saying to leave the upper?
No, just to
Oh.
retain it, so salvage it.
Oh,
Don't let
yeah.
them,
Oh,
don't let them
absolutely.
throw it in the dump, because we could use
Oh,
that
no.
to.
Yeah.
We're excellent hoarders. Yeah.
We have these garages in the back. And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I will completely retain those. Just,
Those-
that's
actually, I
not
would-
even
I
a
would-
We're
question.
all over that. so.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
might as well
We're-
So
retain,
good at keeping.
Well,
retain up
Mm-hmm.
with sashes.
Please excuse my emotion about this. I don't like it when I have to come down to talking about this being the reason. So forgive me.
I think it's a good compromise anyway. They're,
Yeah.
Shouldn't Anderson be able to replicate a lamb's tongue? I mean, I would think they would be able to, but saving old windows to go into a shed till the next owner comes and throws them away. I mean, saving that stuff in the back closet, I mean, it's worthless. I've got plenty of stuff to save, but when I'm gone, it's not gonna get saved. And I don't think saving the windows solves any problem or anything, but the lamb's tongue, you know, I'm sorry, I have health conditions, you do, a lot of other people do, but that's not anything that this board really has the ability to do. We're looking at the outside elements and whether they can get repaired or not. And there's a few other people in the district, and Kathy probably blurted it out, but there's some people that don't like me because I really think that retaining the windows is really important, and it can be done. And I got a 143-year-old dump 20 years ago and rebuilt all the windows and have gone through all the stuff, and I know what it's like. And I was on a man lift for 2.5 years, but I can't do that anymore. But so with the lamb's tongue, if that can get on there and Mike can do an admin approval, that would make me a lot happier.
So is it lamb's tongue and clear glass that we're talking about adding? Okay. I'm good with that.
And just, I know this is hard on you guys, and you can be on the other list of people that don't like me.
Oh, no,
But-
no,
but
that is
No,
not
no,
the
I-
case.
I want the windows saved, so if they're not saved, I'll vote against it. So just so everybody knows, but we know up front, and I don't think the rest of the board feels that way, so.
And
Any other-
I appreciate you wanting to keep the integrity, because that's really what our goal is too.
Yeah.
It's just also other reasons that, of course, we want to make sure that it's,
Having a place to
yeah.
live.
Any other commission member questions, comments? Any public comment on this item?
Mr. Chair, with respect to the lamb's tongue, if the commission does incorporate that into the conditions, I would suggest that it be simply where it exists already, that the molding be included as opposed to putting in a molding in that's not there.
I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Where is the motion?
That-
Which
One
page?
comment that I do want to make, I appreciate people that are buying houses in the district and wanting to live in the district and not renting them out to other stuff. A house just recently sold, the owners moved in over there in Elizabeth and Spear, and they're going to live there. So, I mean, I think that helps the district because there's plenty of absentee owners that don't even repair anything. So I appreciate you guys living there.
And I want to clarify that my issue wasn't with trying to do that. It was having to wait and come back to another meeting because it's the timing of it.
Sure.
And so I wasn't giving pushback on that part of it.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And to be clear, Megan, I wasn't going to push it to another meeting. We could do an administrative approval. If you meet the conditions that the board set, then I'd just review it, approve it, and you could go right away. So,
Works.
yeah, we weren't gonna delay this another 2 months and make you suffer through that. Luann, you were gonna make a motion?
So I move to approve HRC-2024-0161, subject to the conditions of approval listed in the staff report and based on the finding in the request and with the addition of requesting that the lamb's tongue detail on the upper sash be retained or replicated, and that the glass be if it's double pane or whatever, that it's clear glass instead of the colored tinted glass. And consistent with the design guidelines for the Historic District and Secretary of Interior standards as noted in the staff report, and that you can come back for a chairman approval if you meet the guidelines.
I'll second it.
Do you want to add Hope's comment about replicating the lamb's ear or lamb's tongue where it's present? Oh, you did? I didn't-
She did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I fell asleep for a second. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Yes, one.
Motion carries 3-1. Thank you very much. And Anderson should be able to accommodate those conditions.
Yeah.
Or
Even to
OG.
look at it.
OG.
Makes sense.
Thank you so much, what you've been doing
Yeah.
to that building.
Yeah,
Thank you.
save those garage doors.
We've been watching.
We're trying so hard.
Those doors are incredible.
Yeah, this has been a big project of lots of unexpected things, which I'm sure all of you dealing with this understand.
Next item, 5C.
Mr. Chair, could you clarify the vote on the last item? I believe you said 3-1, but there's 5 commission members? Was it 4-1?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, 5C, for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding a request to demolish an existing single-family residence and construct a new single-family residence on property zone single-family 6,000, SF6, located at 709 Elizabeth Street, assessor's parcel number APN 003-273-03. Heather.
Thank you. Heather Ferris again for the record. The subject property is located on the east side of Elizabeth Street, just south of its intersection with West Washington. The property is improved with a small 474 square foot single-family residence. Per the survey information, this lot was part of the Phillips Addition subdivision. Individual lots were first sold in this block in 1925. The house was constructed in 1948. And according to the West Side Historic District National Register nomination, the house is not a contributing building. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the 474 square foot single-family residence and construct a new 2,175 square foot residence. Demolition of buildings in the historic district is addressed in Carson City Municipal Code, Section 18.06.075. The applicant has provided information to support a finding that the cultural resource does not meet the National Register significance criteria. As I noted, the house is not a contributing building. While the property is located in the district, it is not associated with specific contributing events or persons of national significance. The building is consistent with a Depression-era vernacular architecture and does not possess high artistic value, nor does it represent the work of a master or a significant entity. Additionally, the application indicates the building is in poor condition. Following demolition, the applicant proposes construction of a new 2,175 square foot two-story residence with a basement. This slide shows the proposed site plan with the increased footprint. And this is the floor plan. The basement, I just had to shrink it to fit it on the slide. So it's the same size as the rest of the footprint. New construction in the historic district is governed by Division 5.27 of the development standards. There's a detailed analysis of compliance in the staff report. A couple of things to note is that the residence would be located in essentially the same location on the lot, and the porch, driveway, and front yard area would be consistent with the current location. While there are no sidewalks on either side of Elizabeth Street, there are concrete walkways that connect the street to the entry. This element will remain the same. Proposed roofing and siding materials will be similar in appearance to the existing. However, instead of wood siding, the applicant proposes the use of fiber cement board and fiber cement horizontal shake, similar to the existing wood siding. And the dominant street level feature, which is the porch, will be maintained with the new building. The first floor of the residence will match the existing elevation, including the porch and arrangement and ratio of windows and doors. Staff finds that with the incorporation of the conditions of approval, the applicant's proposal can be consistent with the development standards. And with that, I'm available for questions, and Zach Wood is here representing the project.
Thank you, Heather. Questions of Heather?
Can Zach Woods come up? Zach, are you qualified architectural historian?
Okay. Audio's good? Thank you. Yes, I'm Zach Wood with Resource Concepts representing the applicant, Billy Cyphers. Quick background about me is I'm a land use planner working for RCI, and the commissioner's question, if you can just go again.
I wondered if you were qualified as an architectural historian.
No, I'm not a qualified architectural historian.
I just asked that question because the last time we had a request for demolition, we had required that they have a report submitted by a NPS qualified architectural historian. That's to Heather.
So I guess one big difference with that is that was actually determined to be a contributing building, and this one is not.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other commission member questions of Zach or the applicant?
I have another question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Of course, nobody likes demolition here, whether contributing or non-contributing. Did you consider the existing building it doesn't have a front-facing gable, and that's what you have proposed? Did you, which is hard when you're trying to do 2 stories.
Yeah, the question was about what the criteria for the design were in terms of this new construction proposal. Yeah, this is, as far as I know, prepared by the design engineer, the one design that the applicant and the engineer reviewed. So there wasn't an alternative to have the gable ends swapped, as far as I know.
I'm looking at these proposed elevations, and it doesn't look to me like the front elevation is the same as the street view on the application in terms of windows, for instance. Am I looking at it wrong?
It's, the view that you're looking at, Joan, is 5 feet wider. There's, I think it's this first one shows the current footprint, what the other one is, so that's why it's a little bit bigger. I just saw that when she put it up there.
Just not
so.
seeing any windows to the left of the door, to the north of the door in that drawing, where there is clearly a window there now.
I guess we have to remember it's not a reconstruction. Did see the entrance portico was picked up.
I mean, the front view just isn't the same. So you can't say it is the same because it's not. It doesn't have anything like the same window configuration.
It does have the porch element that's a simple porch like the original design with windows to one side of it. And clearly having a 2-story building is going to be a different mass and scale and need different architectural design. So in that regard, I don't know that we can, and it's not a historic building, so it's not, I mean, it needs to fit within the district as a whole, but I don't think it's too outlandish of a design.
Just from memory, that house that's on Williams and where Minnesota comes in, the couple came in and the house was kind of weird on the lot and they didn't really have a backyard or anything, right next to the Fleshman's, the park over there. We allowed that. And then the other one on Nevada and 3rd Street. That was a 1960s house. And that one was replaced with a newer house. And, you know, I'd look at living in a 400 square foot house, and if you look at both levels, that's about 1,100 square feet. But, you know, it's with the materials that they're using, you know, with the hardy siding and stuff like that, paint will probably stay on it longer. You know, the height, is the height basically, I can't read it in the front elevation from the ground to the peak.
I believe it's about 26 feet.
About 20, is it 26?
Yeah. This is Zach Wood. I think the elevation at peak is 26 and 4 inches. And sorry, I'm also reading on a very small copy, but I have full-size plans here if we need them.
Okay, and then my only other thing is, the house to the south, they have a 2-story addition, and the house to the north is only 1 story. So, north, George Gross' old house, Ed and Kathy's house to the south. So, and I'd like to hear from the neighbors.
Joan?
Okay, I'm fine.
My biggest problem is the massing. It's 2 stories. You're increasing the footprint. It looks like a big square box. And is there a way you can go 1.5 stories, change pitch, and bring some of that massing in? Because it just, I mean, you're replacing a tiny house on a tiny lot with something that to me feels like it's going to take up the entire lot. And I understand the need for more square footage. But I think there may be some ways you can get with an architect and get that scale so that it fits better in the neighborhood. That's my only comment. Any other commission member comments? Is there public comment?
I am.
Ed? Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
I agree with what you were saying. I think if it didn't have to be 2 full stories, because right now it's 2.5 stories. It's not 1.5. You can get a second story, second floor under that roof line. That would be great. I am concerned with the materials. I know that it just looks like new construction in a historic neighborhood. I don't know.
I do.
Um,
Does he stay or do I?
Pardon me,
No, he can.
Chair, if I answered some questions that were raised, and would it be possible for the applicant to make a comment to
Sure.
lead the public comment period? Yeah, we'd appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity.
let's take public comment, and then the applicant can address any of our questions.
Ed Smith. I live at 701 Elizabeth Street. I am actually a former Resource Concepts employee of many years. I live immediately to the south of the proposed project. And to start off with, this lot is a postage stamp. It is 35 feet wide and 48 feet long. And how we're going to put a 2,100 square foot house on this property with setbacks and all that, I don't know how the math works out. There's also a very large historic elm tree on the property that I assume it's more than 3.5 feet in diameter that would have to come down in order to build this house. I agree the existing structure is in a raw condition and something needs to be done with it. But again, I can't imagine how to put something that big on this tiny little 35 by 48 foot property. And I don't know what the setbacks are in the city anymore, but how that was all going to work. So I'm not excited about having a giant 2-story house on my property line and looking into my backyard. So that's my 2 cents worth, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ed. Heather, I take it this all meets city setbacks?
So I think as outlined in the staff report, there is going to be the need for a variance. So the existing property, let me get to the other. So this site plan, the green shows the current required setbacks. So the current building isn't constructed within those setbacks. It's set quite a ways forward. I think it encroaches on the northern property line by about a foot. It is not encroaching on that southern property line. So if we go to the proposed, they're meeting the 10-foot setback in the rear. They're meeting the 5-foot setback on the side. They're proposing to maintain the existing 4-foot setback within the existing footprint area, but then step it back as you go to the rear of the property. And they are also proposing to maintain that front setback so it encroaches by about half, I believe. So it would be about a 10-foot setback consistent with the current building.
Is there any discussion about the tree on that?
Yeah, I believe there was discussion about the tree. They are proposing to remove it. It's in the rear. I don't believe it's in the best of conditions, but I'm not an arborist, so.
I think in this report, it says it's a cottonwood tree, and they say it's not in good shape, but we've got a 200-year-old tree a block and a half away.
Is there any other public comment? Kathy?
Hi, my name's Kathy Smith. I'm Ed Smith's wife. So one thought that I had just looking at the plans from today, a basement is proposed. And we, in the flood of 1987 or 97, we had been living in our house 8 years or so. And one night, it had been terrible flooding coming down King Street, and we heard this humming noise, and we found that we had a sump pump under our house. We've got a crawl space that's 4 feet tall, because there's a spring that runs along Elizabeth Street. So I'd be concerned having a basement put in. I didn't know that was a proposal, but yeah, our crawl space filled up with water. So that would be something they might be having to think about if they're considering a basement. And that's neither here nor there to me, but I'm just a concern for them. We were thinking also about just the fact that it's 474 square feet made into a 2,100 square foot home. It'll be nice to have something new there. It needs to be fixed, repaired, rebuilt, what have you. I just thought it would have to be 5 stories high in order to get 2,100 square feet on a 475 square foot. Yeah, the property itself is about 1,680 square feet. The other thing that we had kind of talked about is Billy. He's very nice. We've really enjoyed visiting with him, but he had his property surveyed, and that kind of got the ball rolling because our property, our fence should be moved over according to the survey. And then our neighbor Gayla here, she lives on the north side of his home, of Billy's property, and that fence needs to be moved over a couple of feet, I suppose. But then we had our property surveyed because they had their property surveyed and we weren't sure what to do. And so we're not sure what property lines he would use as the guidelines. So are we going to use the existing fence, which is what we've always done, or do we go by the legal definition of the property per the survey? So that's just a question that we had, and we need to discuss it, but it kind of affects a lot of people on the property because everyone's are off a little bit. And then just to make sure he's got legal setbacks, because it's small, but we'd like to see something improved there, so that's nice. But anyway, just had a few concerns. I think that's it. Just a moment.
Does the property survey reduce the size of your property or increase it?
Ed Smith
It-
again. It just moved everything over.
Towards his property or your property?
it moves, we would have more space, so
Okay.
our current fence
So it-
would
yeah.
be into his
That-
property by a foot or
That's
so.
what I'm wondering, whether
But I
it
think the pro-
reduces his lot size or increases it.
Yeah, and I think the property owner knows that because he had the property surveyed, and that's what started this whole thing in our block. And so now everybody's properties are all messed up and everybody's fences are all, are all off.
At least it's not Virginia City. But we know who owns it. Is there any other public comment? Dennis?
It's a nice conversation starter. Hi, thank you, Chair and Commission. When I saw this, I thought it was a typo. I thought for sure they had the square footage of the house coming in wrong. I went and got that verified, that 2,175 was correct. Because I went to the property and I'm looking at this sweet little place that I don't see too much issue on the outside, but apparently the inside is in a bad shape. They had some roof work done and that took care of that issue. And so my thing is, the squareness of the proposed doesn't change too much from the shape of the original house and such, but the character seems not to be there. I'm really appreciative of the fact that they figured to make it as close to the existing house's siding, but it would be a different material. And I am concerned about the basement. I think our water table is such a fluctuating situation, and then with a spring nearby. And I did get that question and concern about an exit for the downstairs as being that extended window area on the side, but that the ladder wasn't shown in the diagram to show that that would be an exit point. There are several stairs up to it. I don't know if they're going to use those for shelving or other issue, but there is an exit proposed in that window area, and that there will be a ladder. I believe you said it was going to be constructed and part of the structure. So those things were concerns to me. I really appreciate the fact that trying to fit a lot on this piece of property means some consideration, but I wouldn't have suggested a basement. I mean, for the space, yes, but for the facilitation and ability to weather the weather, that's the consideration. But I love that little house look as it is, and the neighbors across the way. That is a historical building. That is as raw as it can be and as worn as I look when I'm standing out in a yard. But the main thing is that I don't think this house is necessarily consistent with what's there. There is a two-story to the north, and it's a beautiful location and such for that particular house. Having the second building with a two-story next to a single-story house seems to be put on as far as maybe privacy for the neighbors. But the basement was a consideration and concern, and the loss of this little house is. But thank you.
Thank you, Denny. Any other public comment?
Hello, Zach Wood with Resource Concepts on behalf of the applicant. I just wanted to give a quick presentation and describe some of our design decisions and advocate for the staff report recommendations, which is to approve the findings of consistency. Yes, this is a big expanse in terms of the square footage of the building. One of the things that is elemental to this project being approved is still the discretionary actions by the city related to use permits or variances, which would allow the plan as designed. And I just want to make sure that when we suggest that there may be some findings related to approval of variances and other things to allow for the existing residential use to continue and, you know, to be allowed, those are different than the historic significance findings. So I do appreciate that, yeah, in design, to match the existing form of the building and the symmetry of the windows, this design does not achieve that, but that's not a criteria. That to step back the design, yes, is possible, but as an applicant, you need to go with your best design first and propose the existing two-floor layout. When I, for the last 3 years, have been working in the historic district and walking it and experiencing it every day, the thing that I understand, thanks to the excellent staff at the city, is, you know, balancing the preservation needs and the way those are encoded in zoning with what I believe is also a mission for a city and for a district, which is to have vitality. And in a case like this, where a use has exceeded its lifetime, whether the building is could meet the same criteria as suggested with a historic architectural evaluation, or just looking from the street, that like a lot of other buildings, they've had additions, they've had remodels, and they've had useful life continued. And that's what the goal of this project ultimately is. I phrased my memo specifically as exploring to this body because first is about what's consistent in form and mass, because that's the more critical decisions for a future application if we make it related to a variance or a use permit. We're asking for more mass, we're asking for more basically. But baseline, we want to make sure that that design is proposed in the same findings that we would suggest to the city as meeting for a variance, that the lot is extremely small compared to the zoning requirements, that the existing house is already extremely small by today's standards, and the proposed square footage is more in line with the average square footage of a new home now. And that in between that space, there's still actions to be made, whether or not 53 square feet can be allowed as a variance. So I look at what was proposed in terms of our design treatments on the building, and I think we really do value the public input, most of all the neighbors, and the commissioners on this body as to, you know, we have flexibility, I guess is what I would say, that because it's new construction, and if there is treatments that do improve and can make this application of a new construction better, then we're all ears, because the only thing that we're most committed on is that for two boxes, which my boss is a licensed surveyor, and I want to comment about some of the survey questions in a second, but I drew green and purple on top of his plans just to highlight that the two boxes for the form and the mass that I think are most important are the existing building footprint and the allowed and legal setback boundaries. So currently working within those two boxes, which is to make the case that there's an existing legal non-conforming use within the setback, within the existing building footprint, and there is an existing legal setback area which hasn't been constructed in, the minor portion of it basically, that those two boxes are what, as allowed by right, we would like to explore the greatest potential for new construction. And, you know, those are kind of the bottom line baselines for our project. Related to the property description and the survey, yes, there's been a record of survey filed that was on behalf of a survey done for 709 Elizabeth. It is a description of the property as surveyed. I think before I would comment about legal status of features and anything on the ground, I would just say those are legal matters. So we're confident in the site plan. It's prepared based on a licensed survey.
Thank you, Jack. And you're right, the purple and the green squares are important. In terms of historic architecture, scale and massing is more than a footprint. It's how the building fits in proportion to the surrounding buildings and on the property. Right now, what I'm seeing is a big box. It's almost equal dimensional. And its height is very similar to the rest of the box. It doesn't fit with anything that I've seen in the historic district. If you had a lot this size in the historic district, the house would have been constricted. It would have been very narrow. It might have been tall, but it would have been proportional to the lot. And that's what I'm not seeing in this plan. And I think that's what, speaking for commission members, I think that's the issue we have with scaling. It's, in terms of the footprint, it works. In terms of the mass of the building, the street facade, the depth of the building and everything else, it doesn't. And that's where the redesign needs to be thought about. If you could bring the height down some, change the roof pitch, it starts grabbing some of the elements you see in the district. 10 and 12, 12 and 12 roof pitches, narrower buildings on narrower lots, and things like that.
I agree with that. I think we can do it. I mean, cottages in the historic district are 2,100 square feet, and they don't have a full second floor. So I think there would be a way to make this work on that lot and scaled right.
We have no purview over setbacks or anything else. The planning commission does that. We just have to look at the historic elements and whether it meets our guidelines. And in terms of scale and massing, I don't think it does. I mean, construction materials, everything else in the staff report is consistent. We can agree that it's not, or we know that it's not a contributing element to the district, so that's not a concern. But I think the scale and massing is just overwhelming for its location. Jen?
It looks like we're gonna go from a peak of a roof that's roughly 10 feet, and now we're gonna boost it up to 26 feet. I mean, that's 16 feet higher. And to have a full, I appreciate Michelle's comments, the second floor doesn't need to be, it can be 8 feet, 7 feet at the peak and have dormer windows and things like that coming out of the roof. And, Ed and Kathy have a 2-story, but it's not 2-story like this. It's like the 1.5 story that you're talking about. And it just looks like we're putting something tall back in its place that's setbacks or no setbacks or whatever. It just feels like it's just pushing everything out and encroaching on everybody. And that's the feel that it takes. And then one other comment on the back of the building, you see windows with lamb's tongues in them.
Yeah, one of the things that you might want to consider is keeping the basement. It sounds like there could be water issues in the basement, but if you want to keep the basement and the first floor with that footprint, but narrow the top floor or something, you can decrease the mass that way too. There's a lot of creative ways to get that thing to fit and get you close. I mean, if you're down to, if you're down to 1,800 square feet instead, and it works, then everything's good. So those are the kind of things I would consider with a redesign to meet that scale and massing.
And just my own experience, RCI did a great survey on my property, and boy, does that make good neighbors in my case. But I was in front of this board 9 meetings in a row to try to get my garage put in. So it's not like we're picking on anything, but we kind of look at this as the first draft. And there are a lot of creative ideas. Maybe go through the district and take a look at the other elements that are out there. And it's kind of hard with my house. It's 5,000 square feet, but it's not an 11,000 square foot lot. the Bliss Mansion's huge. It's 7,000 square feet on a tremendous block. And same with the Posey Bender House, which is probably about 3,500 square feet. They've got tremendous lots, and doing it on such a small lot, it makes this thing look massive. I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about massing and stuff, but it just visually looks like, man, how'd they cram that thing in? I mean, do we put a couple shoehorns on each side? But I think that if you want a basement, that's your thing, and if you're worried about water, that's their thing, you know. I had water in mine, I had water under my office, but we all have sump pumps in new houses. But the basement is part of the square footage, so you take the basement out, and it's not, what, 2,100 square feet. It's basically, what, 1,100 square feet, I think, between both floors, or maybe more for both floors. But the second floor, I think, is the issue, and if you could tone it down and maybe use dormers, lower the roof a little bit, make it look super cute, that would, with other stuff in the district. What this really reminds me of is if you go across Washington Street on Minnesota, there's an old boarding house up there. They just resited it. It's right outside the district. It's on a sandstone foundation, but it looks just like this, and it's a lot bigger of a lot. And, you know, I think there's a lot of cool things you could explore and make this thing really, really cool.
Is the applicant willing to do some design tweaks and bring this back, or?
Chair, this is Zach Wood. I was going to suggest if it's the commission's pleasure, could I confer with the applicant? I just want to make some comments about the comments related to the scale and massing and design and a possible redesign. The first is, again, to advocate on behalf of our application that the zoning district and the setbacks are the primary controlling regulation over scale and massing for any building. And although we are proposing a project that would require a variance, it's mostly consistent with the allowable size and mass in the district. So with that said, we completely understand why there may be a more desirable design that would get the recommendation from the commission, and as much as we can get in terms of specifics from the commission before we agree to redesign and bring a new plan back, that would be the most helpful. So if we can just have 5 minutes, if you can recess, Chair, I just want to make sure that that's all very confidently presented on my behalf of the client.
Yeah, but I don't have a problem doing a recess. We have a architect and construction person who are not here. I mean, in the old days, we used to meet as a board, and the architect on the board would take out his pencil and start drawing things, and we could figure things out. We don't have that as much anymore. So to get you the specific plan and say, do this, and then we'll approve it is tough. Yeah, we have it, but they're not here tonight. But let's go ahead and recess for 5 minutes. You guys talk about it, and we'll see where we want to go, okay?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll definitely have the answer that the commission was seeking and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, let's call a 5-minute recess. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Zach, what do you have for us?
Hello, this is Zach Wood on behalf of the applicant. I just wanted to summarize some comments that we heard. The applicant is prepared to propose a new plan set that would incorporate designs that would reduce the overall mass of the building in terms of square footage. The simplest one is to remove the discretionary areas that we've proposed, mainly the variance portion, and with that alternative, more likely that we would have some different designs to bring. That alternative wouldn't actually reduce the overall width of the building, it would just cut that corner. So continuing to summarize that having a steeper pitched roof, lower overall building height, and a potential step back for a second floor or the higher element of the building is what we heard, and would be prepared to bring back alternatives in terms of a site plan and building elevations that show those kind of building scale and mass adjustments. So we'd be happy to bring those back if the commission would like to continue the item.
That sounds great. For inspiration, up off of Long Street, we used to call it Tiny Town, or there's a lot of small houses close together that just have a narrower facade. And I think they probably fit about the same size lot, but a design something like that would go a long way to appeasing this board, I think. So with that, we'll continue this item, and you guys can bring us back a new set of plans. Does that work for everybody? Go ahead, Lynn.
Sounds great, and I'm glad to see you get plywood on your roof.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, for clarification, are you talking about the houses on Molly? They're off Long and you
Yeah.
go, okay, so just for clarification, it's the houses on Molly off East Long.
And thank you, Zach, for your work on this. Yeah, can we have staples next time? I have papers on top of papers and.
I will request it.
Items on top of items in items. Not for Michelle. Where are we? Item 6, staff reports. Heather.
Okay, Heather Ferris again for the record. I have a handful of things to go over, so stop me if you have questions. So as you all know, May is Preservation Month. We issued a press release, and the scavenger hunt is now available online at carson.org/scavenger hunt or at the Planning Division office. In order to qualify for the drawing for the gift card, submissions must be received by 3 p.m. on May 31st. Tomorrow, the Board of Supervisors is meeting, and the mayor will be proclaiming May as Preservation Month. And the mayor and the chair will be presenting the Historic Preservation Awards. And at the last meeting, you all selected Sarah Martin for her work on the Wrinkle Mansion and Stan Jones in recognition of his support of the Historic District and the HRC. The next regular meeting is scheduled for July 3rd. It's the day before the 4th. I don't know if that's going to be an issue for any of you. If it is, we can look at rescheduling. So if you can let me know sooner rather than later, that would be great. A couple of weeks ago, I sent an email regarding Forum. We're applying for the HPF subgrant for travel. Forum will be July 31st through August 4th in West Palm Beach, Florida. Based on the responses I've received so far, I think Michelle is the only commissioner that is planning to attend. If I'm incorrect, knowing that sooner rather than later would also be appreciated.
Is any staff going?
I believe Hope is.
Good. You want to get out of town? Uh-oh. Somebody better call West Palm Beach.
Oh, yeah. When we met last month, we also talked about the possibility of applying for the 2024 sub-grants for one of the program areas. You guys discussed the possibility of updating the historic preservation plan. Hope and I were also discussing it, and we thought maybe an alternative that you might want to consider would be applying for the grant to complete the inventory on the east side, and then based on that inventory, determine whether or not there's sufficient information there to establish a district. Grant submissions are going to be due August 30th.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Do we want to do, or are we going to do both or just the east side? I was just thinking in terms of the master plan update and things like that, how
I think probably one or the other at this point.
I think
I'd be interested in the east side.
I was going to say, I think the east side's at risk. I don't think the west side's at risk, so I would suggest the east side.
yeah, we can do that. I'm just wondering how we, with the historic properties plan, I was going to volunteer a lot of, or ask the board to volunteer a lot of their time so we could get some share that way. The last time we did an update for the district, trying to find the match was the biggest challenge. And I know you guys are busy, so that's the only thing I'd consider with that is where do we find the match for that effort?
I thought it would still be the in-kind match. Are you thinking that wouldn't work on the east
No,
side?
I'm thinking it would work. I'm just wondering how much you guys could commit to.
Our commitment would be
Match.
pretty minimal, to be honest with you. I think I think if we're going after a grant, the West Side Historic District's well documented and it's been protected. So I'm not sure what's to be gained, except for we may find some properties that we thought were contributing have been modified and they no longer contribute. On the east side, there's no protections in place. There is an old inventory. And so I think there's a benefit to looking through that inventory, identifying if we have a concentration of resources or if we just have resources and maybe it's an opportunity for a landmark program.
The Historic Properties Master Plan wasn't just focused on the west side. It was, I think it was done in 1990, the last one was done in 1990, and it was basically the whole city county. So it's a much broader approach to preservation than looking at a specific area. And that's why I was thinking it would dovetail with the master plan update.
Well, we can certainly, if you'd prefer, I mean, we can certainly look at the master plan update in conjunction with the East Side survey and see if we should make modifications to the master plan based on the observations on the east side. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I can send you a copy of the
Okay.
1990s master. I gave it to the guys doing the planning thing. And they agreed that, yeah, this is a little outdated and it would really help to address some of those questions. But we'll send it to you and we can kick it around.
Okay.
Heather.
And then finally, also at the last meeting, you had requested information from Brewery Arts Center specific to how they intend to deal with the crosses, the louvers, and the mural that's painted on the old church. Following that meeting, I did reach out to Spike, and he was unable to attend the meeting tonight, but he did send a memo kind of outlining their plans moving forward, and they're going to have something more specific nailed down later in the year, and at that point, he would be able to join us for a meeting.
One of the things I noted in his letter was he was talking about the vents on the steeple, not putting non-functional louvers in. When we discussed that, we said that needs functional louvers. All the heat from that building is going to go up in the steeple, and the louvers were there to alleviate some of that. So it can't just be something that looks like a louver. It needs to be functional that will
Right.
keep
so-
that thing cool. So
Yeah,
just
so I hope
let
we'll-
him know that.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at hopefully an application for you guys to actually consider
Yeah.
something.
But he just
Yeah.
needs to know that they're not non-functioning, that they should be functioning louvers or vents of some sort. Any questions of Heather? Is there any additional public comment? Denny?
Legal memo on the crosses has gone.
The what?
Well, that's a great question. I wasn't, this is Todd Reese, the DA, Deputy DA. I wasn't entirely understanding that I was doing a memo. However, I can work on that. With that comment, I wanted to, I have done some research. I have looked into this question. My research isn't finished, but I wanted really kind of a focus from the board. What question are you looking to answer?
Well, I think the question, they want to remove it. And some as I understood it, it came before the board, when Greg was on the board, that some people thought it was, that the cross itself was an architectural element, and some people thought it was just a religious marker. And so can we say, no, you can't remove it because it's an architectural element? Or yes, you can remove it because we don't really have anything to do with the religious aspects of that particular symbol?
The discussion at that time, Todd, was that all the churches are grouped together.
Right.
And that it was a distinguishing architectural element for
Right.
that building that made it part of that group of churches.
Right.
And we wanted to see it remain for that reason.
Right.
So
And so did the board have any questions as to the cross that was already removed?
I think we approved that, and I think that was a larger cross. It was the one that the church said they wanted, and we didn't have a problem with that, but it's the one remaining
Sure.
element there that identified that as a church, although it's hard to imagine a steeple like that on anything other.
Sure.
But,
So, the new wrinkle to me, that's new to me today, is the reference to church law. I haven't looked at church law at all, and I'm not sure how that would weigh in your considerations. I have looked at federal law. In federal law, there's kind of one line of cases basically says, the government cannot mandate the establishment of religious symbols because that would violate the establishment of religion clause. So, for example, a government body such as yourselves couldn't demand that the cross be put up on a historical or on a property. Let's leave off historical at the moment. That would violate the establishment clause. When it comes to historical buildings and historical monuments, there is more leeway. The United States, in a fairly recent case with the current makeup of the court or similar makeup, the court held that a cross that was established back in the 1920s for a historic memorial to, I believe it was World War I or fallen soldiers, could stand. The city had been sued for the removal of the cross, and the Supreme Court, citing the historical nature of the cross and the fact that it had been there for over 100 years, allowed it to stand. So that would play into your current situation where you're saying, hey, this cross has been a part of that building for I don't know how many years, but certainly it sounds like over 100 years. And that would have a similar analogy to the cross at the cemetery that the Supreme Court recently said could stay. If you determine that it is a historical, an architectural feature, a historic feature of that building and of that area, then you would likely be able to say, we'd like the cross to stay.
thank you. Does that start to answer your question, Joe?
I think so, yeah. Not that I won't look at the case myself.
And then, Mike, wasn't the cross that was given back to the church, it wasn't the one on the back that they took off? Was it that one that was about this tall? Okay.
Yeah, there was a big one on the back.
Yeah, it was-
I think the one on the front was actually placed there when they did the addition.
Oh, you mean the one that's existing there now?
The one, yeah, the existing one, I think.
Well, it's still, well, there's a cross of that same nature before they bricked over in 1941. So I think that's there.
Needs-
But also note
yeah.
the Catholic Church, when they moved out, they left the bell. And they talked to the Brewery Arts Center, and the Brewery Arts Center got the bell out of there probably about 12 years ago.
Yeah, they took the stained glass windows,
Yeah.
bell,
Yeah.
and the big cross at the back part of the church.
And they desanctified the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joan, I'll be happy to forward you the case.
You can send me the site.
Denny, you had a public comment.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. Denny French, Carson City. I was going to bring up the brewery arts, and the three subjects were the steeple and whether I used them as shutters, but they're louvered, so that you had mentioned the heat leaving the building at the conversation that I was at the meeting. And I was waiting to hear if they had followed up. The last I heard was that, well, they said they were working towards following up. And so I don't know where they are on that, but it was interesting to have it brought up tonight. And so the steeple, the cross is on my list, and the other thing was, well, the louvers. So steeple, louvers, and cross. So we got it covered. The next thing is, I am so tickled about finding out that there's something called lamb tongue windows. And so I can't lambs. Oh, it's not like the lamb? Plural, okay. That was a joke, but sorry, I'm not good at it. I'm just trying to ease myself here. But the main thing is, thank you all for your discussion. I really appreciate it. I got to meet the homeowners on both sides of that property that was discussed on. But thank you.
Thank you, Denny. Any other public comment?
I do.
Can't be a public.
Okay, well, commissioner reports then. But I didn't see that on the syllabus for today, so I'm sorry. I'll wait for you, Mr. Chair. On Mark Twain Days on Saturday, May, 11th, in the ballroom at the Brewery Arts Center, I'm doing a history of Carson then and now my PowerPoint, and I've got over 190 locations, and that's from 10 until 12, and Saturday of Mark Twain Days. And then on July 12th, Friday night, we're going to dedicate the bench to stand on King and Curry. The plate's been installed, but it's going to be a ribbon cutting with the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Merchants Association, the leadership class, and we're going to have a food truck down there and stuff. And coincidentally, it's on Stan's birthday.
Oh, that's nice.
Great. And the Silver Saddle Wagon will be out at Mark Twain Days at the Brewery Arts Center as well. If anybody wants a nice historic wagon ride. And you could pet the mules.
And I think there's tickets still available for the V&T Railway ride. Hey, I'm pedaling too.
Okay, everybody finished with their sales pitches? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Oh, wait, Michelle.
Just one comment. I just want to thank Luann for doing the majority of the work for the treasure hunt. Really appreciate it.
Thanks to you guys that helped make it the product that it is with the.
I think it's all Greg's fault.
It's all good. I blame Greg for everything now.
Yep, that's what you get for leaving. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I don't think so. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.